Chapter 8. Because they didn't have speaking parts in Romeo and Juliet, Marissa and Renee didn't have to show up at many rehearsals. Renee introduced her to chess club and science club meetings, where she clamped her mouth shut and tried to keep from yawning. Bored, she did her homework during the meetings and started a journal that she kept for 3 days. One day she wrote, "I'm hungry, I mean really hungry." She mused about food all day. She sensed weakness in her fingers when she wrote that line, and later used her famished state as an excuse to give up her journal. She just couldn't write. She was delirious from hunger. How she would have loved to poke a straw into a thick strawberry shake and suck to her heart's content. She had gone on a diet of fruit and cereal, though when her mother served heavy dishes like lasagna, her nostrils flared and her mouth watered. She would ask her mother to serve her a small portion and then complain that she meant small, but not that small. She avoided potato chips and cookies, two temptations that appeared in her dreams. She avoided that tub of chocolate ice cream in the freezer and the crumbly Mexican queso de cotija. Instead, she ate apples and oranges and cracked open pomegranates full of jewels that bled bittersweet juice as she chewed. She bought an overpriced bag of unsalted sunflower seeds, ate a portion of its contents, and threw the rest to the sparrows. She was losing weight, but her resolve to stay on the diet was tested when Renee suggested trick-or-treating together. She had given up that fall ritual 2 years ago, too babyish, but she missed dressing up in costumes that she assembled from boxes of clothes in the garage, and missed the sound of candy falling into a grocery bag. "I'm going to go as a nerd," Renee said, straight-laced, before he erupted in laughter. "But Renee, you're a nerd all the time," Marissa laughed, and begged him to please keep his cell phone in his pocket, not on his belt. She hugged him, called him "my precious nerdito," and told him how proud she was that he retired his white socks. But neither went trick-or-treating. Renee had to hand out candy at his house, and Aunt Sarah asked Marissa to do the same at her place. Aunt Sarah was working the night shift at the hospital and didn't want to leave her house empty on a night when not only goblins and spirits, but downright nasty thieves broke into homes. She left Marissa with a pizza and 3 bags of candy to hand out. "I shouldn't," she told herself, as she pulled a cheesy slice of pizza toward her mouth. "I really shouldn't." But her tongue rolled out, and she bit into the slice. Her eyes fluttered closed. It was too delicious. She took a second and third bite, and then wiped her fingers on a paper napkin when she heard the shuffling of little feet at the front door. When the doorbell rang, she snatched a bag of candy from the coffee table. "Trick or treat!" screamed 3 girls, all princesses. Marissa rained big chunky candies into their bag, and showered more into the bags of the next herd of trick-or-treaters. She was kept busy. When the hordes finally stopped coming, she returned to the kitchen, her mouth watering with a half-eaten slice of pizza. It had grown cold and gooey, so she popped it in the microwave and returned to the front door when the bell rang. "Trick or treat," the crew of 3 guys croaked, their deep voices sounding like frogs. "Hey," one of them said after he grabbed 3 fistfuls of candy. "Ain't you Marissa?" "They're from Washington," she guessed. "Yeah, who are you?" The guy stripped off his mask. It was a screaming face, modeled after a painting that had been popular since she was a baby. But he was no longer little, though his pants were riding low. He had a faint mustache, and his teeth were yellowish from cigarette smoke. "Joel," Marissa said, "aren't you too old for trick-or-treating?" "Chalet, I did it 2 more years." He threw 2 fingers up like a pitchfork. "After that, I'll give it a rest. And then when I get my kids, I'll push them in the strollo." "Que gacho carnal," one of the friends cried with laughter. Joel's friends stripped off their masks. Marissa recognized one of them, and the other was someone she had never met and would rather not know. A chain of bluish tattooed tears fell from the corner of his right eye. "You moved, Kano. Is this your crib?" Joel asked as he leaned around Marissa and peered in. "I like the couch. Es muy firme for tu sabes. A little action. It's my aunt's place. Your tia home?" "Yeah, she's home." Marissa's heart began to thump. Joel wasn't the worst guy in the world, but he wasn't an altar boy either. "Too bad," Joel crowed as he wiggled his hips and threw his arms into the air. "We could have partied. You feel me?" He brought a cigarette out of his shirt pocket and lit up. "Hey, how come you moved to that gabacho school? Don't you like us losers?" Marissa thought fast and conjured up a lie. "My mom made me. She said I was messin' up." "I'm messin' up, but my mom don't move me," Joel giggled. But that's smart of your mom, caring about you and everything." He sucked on his cigarette and let out a wafer of smoke. "The word is you're all stuck up, too good for us." Joel's face became slick with the meanness, his teeth like rolls of corn. He turned his face slightly and spit out a flake of tobacco. "People spew all kinds of nasty rumors," Marissa said with a sneer that had no feeling behind it. She was praying for a group of trick-or-treaters to come up the walk, but none did. "I heard about you and Roberto. You two threw some platos and messed him up good. He's a weak pendejo, but you're tight, girl." He turned to his friends. "She tight, huh?" The friends nodded like those toy chihuahuas in the back of the windows of the cars. One took the cigarette from Joel and used it to light his own. The tip of the cigarette caught and glowed red as sin. Marissa couldn't think of a smooth escape. She looked back into the living room and said, "My aunt wants me. You all right, girl?" Joe slurred. He turned to his friends. "She all right, huh?" Their heads did the toy chihuahua nod. They left, tripping down the sidewalk and unwrapping candy bars, their masks sitting at the top of their heads. They don't need masks, Marissa thought. They're already scary. "You're tight, girl." All the next day the phrase played in Marissa's mind and made her hate Joel and his low-life friends. "You're tight, girl," echoed again like a refrain, and made her hate the world. You want to be happy, she thought, and then a weasel neck like Joel shows up to make you feel bad, to make you feel like nothing has changed at all. When Renee and Marissa went to rehearsals for Romeo and Juliet, Marissa felt out of place. Everyone was so cheerful, hugging one another and clasping hands. They were so touchy-feely. "They're a bunch of fakes," Marissa muttered. She had just watched the scene when Juliet discovers Romeo dead. Marissa could see the dead Romeo's eyes fluttering, and he had crossed his legs. A dead person crossing his legs, even for love, for each other, seemed fake. "No, they're not. They're as genuine as you or me," Renee pouted, with his head down, as if he were mad at his shoes. He asked, "What's wrong with you? How come you're so negative?" Marissa was hurt. She could take a punch from Roberto, or a slap from a girl with a bad attitude. She could take her mother's scolding voice, or not cleaning up her room. But the question from Renee hurt, so she thought she had a bad attitude. "Nothing's wrong with me." Her back stiffened with anger. "I know that you went to the bad school." Marissa cut Renee off with a bitter state. She got up and left the auditorium, her backpack feeling like it carried something heavier than books. "These Hamiltonians don't know the real world," she muttered as she stood in the autumn sunlight, the wind flicking her hair about her. She took out her cell phone and checked the time, 4:17 p.m. Her mother was going to pick her up at 5 in front of the school. Marissa turned, faced the auditorium door where she had exited, and waited for Renee to come out, apologizing on his knees. But the door didn't swing open. She made out laughter coming from inside. Were they laughing at her? Marissa was sensitive to criticism, and she knew that at times she imagined things. A mere glance from someone on the street caused her to roll her hands into fists. "Is it me?" she thought often, and she thought at this moment, "Is it me, or is it the new school?" Her mood was dark. She wanted to kick something. "Maybe I am negative," she muttered, "but I don't care if I don't belong here." Marissa walked down a hallway plastered with signs for the school clubs. Science, vegan, bisexual, poets for the world, thespians, Latinos in business. She sneered at the posters. At her old school, the walls were tagged with graffiti. "I know they're fakes," Marissa said. She boiled with anger and ventured into the restroom. With a fingernail she dabbed at something in her eye, which could have been dust, an eyelash, or a wind-blown speck from a tree. She blinked, but her eye still felt scratchy. She closed her eyes and reconstructed the image of Renee asking her, "What's wrong with you?" She could have asked him the same, "What's wrong with you?" Sure, she thought, he's changed his socks and pants, but that's a stupid laugh of his. A girl entered the restroom, observed Marissa, and went into a stall where she started crying. Marissa was going to tease her hair, but she put her brush back. She listened as the crying eventually subsided into a sob, then tiptoed to the stall, knocked, and asked, "You okay? What's wrong?" There was silence before the girl replied, "Everything." "What do you mean?" Marissa asked after a long minute. The girl unlocked the stall and came out. Her eyes were running with tears, and her nose was red. "This boy I like," the girl began. "He walks past me like he doesn't see me." Tears began to leak down her cheeks. "Boys," Marissa growled. "They ain't nowhere like us girls." Marissa opened her arms, and the girl took baby steps into Marissa's embrace. Marissa let her sob on her shoulder and began to think that maybe this touchy-feely approach of her classmates could be real. "What's your name?" Marissa asked, when the crying slowed down. "Priscilla," the girl sobbed. "Mine's Marissa," she volunteered, and released the girl from her embrace. She pulled a paper towel from the dispenser and handed it to Priscilla, who blew long and hard and tossed the wadded-up paper towel at the garbage can. She missed by a foot. They left the restroom arm in arm, and Marissa couldn't believe the change in herself. Less than an hour before, she had been brooding about the actors and their fake expressions of love. Now she could see how she might have been wrong. "Boys," Marissa grumbled. "We just gotta depend on ourselves." Whatever had been in her eye was gone. She could see clearly in the late afternoon sun. She realized that it was okay to hug. There was nothing fake about it, and it felt right. Chapter 9. The next morning, Marissa spotted Renee slurping from a water faucet. She was shocked to see that he went back to wearing white socks and high-water pants. His hair was uncombed. His large watch was like a handcuff on his skinny wrist. He was carrying a small briefcase that Marissa knew held his chessboard in pieces. He stood up, wiping droplets from his mouth, and turned away. Marissa was hurt. How could he so cruelly ignore her? "So what if he thinks he's better than me?" she muttered as he bumped along the crowded hallway like a fish swimming against the current. "I don't care about no stupid boy." But she did care. In history, her mind floated over a battle scene from the American Civil War. In biology, she peered into a microscope and attempted to sketch the cells of dead leaves. In English, she scrawled in her binder and studied her classmates, some of whom were listening to the teacher discuss a Robert Frost poem about walking through the snow. What did she know about snow? She had seen it in calendars, but had she ever scooped it up and patted it into a ball? She wanted to return to her old school. But her doubt left when at lunchtime she saw Priscilla seated alone at a rickety wooden table. When she plopped down opposite Priscilla, she noticed the table was scarred with names of couples: Terry and Jason, Seth and Brittany, Laura and Raphael, Ryan and Derek. "How do you feel?" Marissa asked when her gaze lifted from the table. Priscilla was eating a large sugar donut. She offered half to Marissa. "Better," Priscilla answered. She nibbled her donut and asked Marissa if she was new to the school. "Yeah, I am. I got tired of all the jargon at my old school." Marissa told her that she had transferred 2 weeks before because her old school was messed up. She recounted the story of Alicia and Roberto, the accident, the photo that popped out of the glove compartment, and Alicia's broken leg. But she didn't describe the 2 fights with Roberto. Marissa didn't want to come off as a hothead. She told Marissa that she moved to the new school to get away from trouble and to get better grades, and slowly peeled a sliver from the wooden table, because she wanted to be with her new boyfriend. "Who's he?" Priscilla asked. Marissa hesitated, swallowing twice as she debated whether to describe Renee, a confirmed nerd. She held the sliver of wood between her thumb and index finger, and slowly applied pressure until its sparks of pain ignited against her skin. "It's a guy named Renee." "Renee Carey?" Priscilla asked. "No, Renee Torres," Marissa answered without looking at Priscilla. She wanted to give Priscilla time to wince, smirk, or throw up at the mention of Renee the nerd, but she didn't spew to Priscilla that she had just broken up. Priscilla remained silent. A sparrow landed near their feet in search of crumbs. The bird pecked at something on the ground and flew away. "He's nice," Priscilla said. "She's so polite," Marissa thought, and laughed. "It's funny how we met." Here Marissa became honest. "You know how I mentioned Alicia and Roberto?" Priscilla nodded. "Well, I got in a fight with Roberto." "You mean like—" Priscilla lifted up her 2 dainty fists. "Yeah, like that." She told Priscilla how the cell phones had been mixed up in the scuffle. "Life's weird, huh?" Priscilla remarked. "But how did Roberto know Renee? They go to different schools." "Renee was tutoring Roberto at math. Roberto has to be better at it to get into the army." Marissa peeled another sliver from the tabletop. "Then we got together to get our cell phones back. I could see that he was a nerd." "Yeah, he is. But he was sort of sweet." "Sweet matters. That's what I found out when I liked this other boy who turned out to be mean. And that's how we started. That's why I'm here." Talking about Renee made Marissa realize that she missed him. Priscilla and Marissa punched each other's number into their cell phones. The bell rang and lunch was over for them, but just beginning for the sparrows. The birds swooped down from the bare trees to feast on the crumbs students had dropped thoughtlessly to the ground. "Renee!" Marissa yelled as she pushed through a crowd at the end of the school day. He was hurrying away from her. I'm going to get real mad if you don't stop. Renee, Renee, do you hear me? Renee stopped, turned, and asked, What? One of his pants cuffs was hooked on his socks. With long, scissoring steps, Marissa closed in on him and pulled up within inches of his face. How come you're cold to me? Just because I said those people were fake? She pointed in the direction of the auditorium. It's complicated, Renee answered vaguely. Complicated? She breathed in like a prize fighter. Listen, Renee, I was wrong. I was stupid, you know, but it doesn't mean you have to dump me. I'm not dumping you. He let his backpack slide from his arm. It's just that my mom found out about you, and she doesn't want me to see you. His lower lip dropped, as if he couldn't believe what he had just admitted. Your mom? What does she have to do with us? If Marissa were a dragon, smoke would have billowed from her nostrils. Aren't you a man? No, not yet. Chihuahua, Marissa thought. Of course he wasn't, but still. Then she remembered his mother's unpleasant voice on the telephone. Maybe she was mean as a snake. She asked, asking, You got issues with your mom, huh? Head bowed, he answered, Sometimes. Marissa's lips rolled and puckered, opened and closed as anger brewed inside her. When she sighed, some of the anger escaped. She felt sorry for Renee. He had been trying to change with his clothes and by lifting weights. Listen, I have to go, said Renee. He cut a glance at the student parking lot jammed with cars. You didn't bring your bike? Marissa asked. No, your mom's picking you up. Renee, you're like a little kid. Renee squeaked a goodbye, turned and hurried to the parking lot, where he got into a white Toyota. He's not going to just drop me like that, Marissa ran after the Toyota, creeping through the parking lot. Other cars were slowly exiting, turning right because if they went left, a motorcycle cop parked at the corner would switch his mustache and get them. Hey, she knocked on the window. Renee, roll down your window. Renee glanced at her briefly and then stared straight ahead. His hands were fidgeting on his lap. His mother, Marissa guessed, was a control freak. Come on, roll it down, Renee. The Toyota slowly advanced towards the exit. The parking lot was crowded with cars trying to get at the same time, and Marissa kept pace as she considered the dramatic action of leaping onto the hood. But she didn't have to. The window slid down noiselessly. My mom says, What do you want? Renee asked meekly. What? Renee, you're talking to me. Your girlfriend. Marissa cut her attention to Renee's mother, who was a little older than her own mom. Her hair was stiff with hairspray, and her small mouth held back large white teeth. The dress was too short for a woman her age. The hemline revealed two knobby knees. Your what? Renee's mother barked. She braked the car, an action that made Renee's head sway forward and his arms rise up against the dash. Mi novio, you know, like we hold hands, Marissa blurted out. Her temper flared. What was the big deal for Renee to have a girlfriend? He is no way your novio. He's my son. She bared a set of shark's teeth. Wow, girl, Marissa sang. Don't get so blown up. We're not getting married or anything. I'm not a girl, as you say. She snarled something in Spanish that Marissa couldn't make out, nor could Marissa make out a phrase shaped on Renee's lips. I love you, I like you, or was it I leave you? It must have been the last phrase, because when the Toyota pulled away with a screech, Renee, apparently loyal to his mother, didn't turn back like a little boy for one last look. Marissa rode the city bus home that day. At red lights, she peered at the window, greasy with fingerprints, and observed the drivers, men and women, some adolescents a year or two older than she, all going somewhere, all with their own cargo of problems, and maybe joys that brought light to their eyes. Marissa wished she could write a song to explain her feelings. A nerdy boyfriend gone, a new school, a new friend named Priscilla with her own issues. Is there anything wrong? An elderly woman asked. Her eyes seemed moist. No, not really, Marissa answered. She could sense the woman had been watching her, a kind woman with her coat buttoned all the way up. Her grayish hair was tidy, and the cap pin on her lapel sparkled every time the bus hit a pothole. She was squeezing a sheer silk handkerchief. Marissa recognized that the woman was trying to be nice. Marissa got off the bus 2 stops early and kicked through the leaves. When she arrived home, tired and heavy at heart, she discovered Alicia waiting on the porch. Her crutches were leaning on the rail. 2 cold sodas, both unopened, stood sweaty at her feet. Alicia, Marissa called happily. She was happy to see her, this old friend who was like a new friend. They had known each other since 2nd grade, and wasn't it true that they had traded sandwiches? Wasn't that the sign of true friendship? The sharing of food and the ritual stomping of empty milk cartons? I heard what happened at the car wash, Alicia said and pouted. She rose stiffly, one hand on the porch rail. Stop bothering me. It's over, Marissa said. How did you get here? Mom brought me. I told her you and me had some studying to do. Alicia said that she and her mother had had a long talk about boys. Her mother told her she trusted her to use her head and said that the episode with Roberto was a learning experience. Marissa didn't relish talking about Roberto. She said, let me have one of those sodas. Cream or root beer, Alicia said. La crema, girl. They drank their sodas on the lawn. Alicia's blue cast attracted two boys riding their bikes down the street. They stopped and asked about the cast. Alicia straight-faced said she got into a skiing accident. The boys looked at each other. What's Snow like? The taller of the two asked. Marissa and Alicia could see that she must have been eating a lot of candy because his tongue was coated. He had sucked something sweet and blue, and the corners of his mouth were still stained. He was a kid living through the sense of taste. Like real cold fire, Marissa answered for Alicia. Alicia nodded. That's right. That's why, if you stay in snow too long, it makes your skin all red. The boys rode away. Marissa knew that the boys, Chavalos, as her father would call them, were built for play and didn't want to stand around discussing fiery snow. They were gone, weaving down the pitted road, where dogs lurked behind rickety fences. The girls laughed and clinked their soda cans together. Neither had ever seen snow, but they imagined that it was like a cold fire. They'd imagined a lot of things when they were really young, but never a fight that could ever end their friendship. Alicia swept her leg towards Marissa. You be the first. First what? Marissa understood when Alicia handed her a Sharpie pen. She wrote on the cast, Alicia and Marissa, siempre. They were friends. They were girlfriends. They were hermanas, with different last names. They sat on the grass, talking about family and boys, until the dust crept up the street, and Marissa's father's truck pulled into the driveway, fenders rattling and horn tooting. My dad will give you a ride home in a little bit, Marissa said, and pulled Alicia to her feet. Come in for a while. Go get my crutches, Alicia begged, like a little girl. Forget your crutches. Marissa picked her up in her arms, and Alicia said, Dang, you're strong. You're light, Marissa said. Hey, did you see that I lost weight? Oh, yeah, how did you do it? I stopped with the chicharrones. She huffed as she carried Alicia to the porch, where her father was unlacing his cement-dusted work boots. I think I just kept my mouth shut and nothing went in. That's my diet.